if you truly want to change and you truly want the things that you say you want. And you're like, well, what if it doesn't work out? Well, it 100% is already not working out. And you are 100% guaranteed to not make any sort of progress with the current habits that you have. You have a greater than 0% chance of seeing some sort of upside versus 0 chance that you have now. I'm Michael Mogill, founder and CEO of CRISP, the nation's #1 law firm growth company. I've built my business through practice, not theory. CRISP started with just $500 to my name and has grown to over 8 figures in revenue over the last few years, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. Our approach has been to take everything we've learned about generating massive growth within our own organization and help the country's most ambitious and committed law firm owners do the same for theirs. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with innovative market leaders from the legal industry and beyond to learn from those who thrive in the face of adversity, challenge the status quo, and define what it means to be a true game changer.
This is Jessica, Head of Coaching Strategy at CRISP, and today we're flipping the script for another special edition episode to get Michael's take on why so many firm owners feel like they're constantly putting out fires instead of making real progress, how to stop hesitating, trust your instincts, and start making the bold moves that actually grow your firm, and why working harder isn't always the answer and what it really takes to break through to the next level.
I'm not going to be one of these people who work smarter, not harder, when they start saying that kind of shit, because the problem with people who say that type of stuff is they overcorrect too much of the so-called smart, and then they say, I'm not going to work hard at all, and then they wonder why they don't get any progress because they read a 4-hour work week.
That's coming up on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. Okay, here we are. Welcome back to another AMMA.
Let's do this thing. I'm ready. Jessica, what questions do we have today? I just want to jump straight in. I mean, usually we're talking about something. I mean, I could say it's raining outside today, which is exciting because anytime it rains, I associate it with just focus and working hard, because what the hell else are you going to do?
Yeah.
So, and I pulled up to the office, it was raining, and I was just like, hell yeah, brother. Let's go, right?
Yeah.
Your jacket's getting all wet, you're getting soaked. Perfect. Boom.
It's great, except when you're doing kid drop-off. Rain is not great.
That is true.
So.
That is true.
Besides that, though,
you
it's
just
great.
associate it with, I mean, look, even if it was like an absolute thunderstorm, fantastic.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Let's get after it. So, this is the AMMA, I guess, Ask Michael Mogill Anything. You know, theoretically, you could ask Jessica Mogill something as well if you want, the AJMA. But you guys submit the questions. You text us at 404-531-7691. That is a real number. You can absolutely text it. You can text it right now. You can text it right now if you had a question. In fact, for the next 10 people that text this number, when you hear it and you text it with something that you enjoy from this podcast, this specific podcast, some insight or takeaway that was valuable to you, if you text it, I'll have our team send you something swag. How about that? We'll send you something.
Nice little sweet pot today.
But then you also got to ask a question.
Yeah.
You also got to ask what question you would like to have answered on this podcast. All right. And it might just come up in a future AMMA. Then we got the other episodes, the interview, traditional podcast format, right? Bring in an expert, legal industry and beyond, ask them questions. Then you got the encore editions where we bring back some of the most popular episodes. And man, we might even introduce some new types of episodes of the podcast this year. You know, we'll see. You know, the political podcast, okay. Right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm just kidding. I've tried to say, look, we're going to keep it focused on leadership and culture and firm growth, et cetera. I said, all right, cool, no problem. Those are all the things I talk about anyway. Yeah. But 98% of the things we talk about. Maybe there's other, topics on being a mom or dad or raising kids or having a relationship. I don't know. We can talk about all sorts of stuff. In fact, you guys ask it in the AMMA and it becomes, that's actually the best way to do it, right? Ask it as a question. If enough people ask it, we'll answer it on the AMMA. And if enough people find that valuable, then we'll consider it for future segments.
All right.
So what questions do we have this week?
Well, let's jump right in with that. So question number 1. Every time I make progress in growing my firm, it feels like some fire or disaster happens. Why do I feel like I'm constantly moving from solving one problem to dealing with the next?
You constantly feel like you're moving from solving one problem, dealing with the next problem?
Welcome.
One of us. One of us. Like, yes, welcome to growing a business.
Yeah.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
And the harsh truth is, it never ends.
Never.
Never. It never ends. Either until the business fails or you're dead. It's interesting, like in fast-growing businesses, you go from exiting a storm to entering a new storm constantly. And as soon as you solve a problem, there's another problem right after that. That doesn't mean that's a bad thing. It's just like that's what it is to grow a business. I mean, the growth happens because you are solving the problems. And if you can solve every single problem, right, then you're going to build $1 trillion company. You can really look at the scale of a business. Let's say you look at a firm that's at $1 million in revenue, right, annual revenue. They have solved more problems and probably larger problems than a firm that's at 500,000 annual revenue, 250,000. And then you look at a firm that's at 80 million in annual revenue. You have to think, look at all the problems they've had to solve. They had to figure out how to become a 7-figure firm, then, a 8-figure firm. They've had to figure out how to be able to grow their team and their leaders and their culture and have metrics and maintain profitability and reinvest into that firm and have processes and systems and like all these different things they've had to figure out. And they've probably had to rebuild multiple times because there's different levels of growth. There's a different layer of, complexity at 80 million than there is at 1 million, for example. But there's levels, right? And as you kind of go through these levels, new devils sort of thing, you experience new problems and new challenges. And that's just a part of the journey. So why do you feel this way? I mean, it's probably because you're growing.
And it's exhausting.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, look, I come in every day and I'm like, what problems do we have today? And one of the things that, if you really want to like expedite your growth, is be able to focus and prioritize on what are the biggest problems. Like if solved, what is the biggest problem that we solve that would make everything else easier? Like that's a great question to ask yourself. And then you can go into like, okay, what's the biggest problem in the organization right now? Dedicate 100% of your focus and energy to solving that problem. Great. Then once that's solved, ask that question again and dedicate 100% of your focus to solving the next problem. And if you do that continuously over time, over years, you're going to build a really great business. Or you're going to go absolutely fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes the two happen, together. So
I was going to say, it must be nice, one problem and the next. A lot of times it's like all 10 problems at once.
Yeah, you build your massive, law firm and then check yourself into an insane asylum, right? The same year.
Yeah.
So, and look, I'm joking, right? So some of you can't see this, right? Because you're listening. And if you hear this out of context, you're going to be like, oh, wow, what's he advocating for? No work-life balance. And I got to, okay, look, it's a joke. And if those of you that have solved a lot of difficult problems and you've actually grown your law firm, you're probably nodding along because it's a fucking joke, right? And honestly, that is actually what you experienced and what happened. You're stressed out all the time and you went from one problem to solving the next problem, and then you look back and now you can laugh about it. And then you tell war stories to people saying like, okay, well, I remember we were at this level and then we had to deal with this problem and here's how we navigated it. And it's like you become fond of the journey of what those experiences were.
Well, trauma bonding.
You just got to realize this part of the journey is what it is. I think one of the most valuable things, if I can go back, I think about this a lot. What advice would I give to young Michael, right? Knowing what I know today, and I actually also do the experiment of thinking like old Michael, like future Michael, what advice would he give me today? And a lot of it is just, if you're experiencing something that is, a lot of difficulty or adversity and uncertainty, sometimes the best thing that you can hear is from someone that's already been and kind of surpassed where you're at, is just, that's what you're supposed to feel, and that's what the journey is supposed to be. Because if you don't hear that, sometimes you feel like you're doing something wrong, right? You're like, should I be this uncomfortable, or should I be, this stressed out? Should I be, should it be this hard and this challenging? Sometimes you look around and it seems like nobody else is struggling, and you think, well, maybe I'm just doing it wrong. But if someone were to actually tell you, like if you were to tell your younger self, right, if you came from the future, right, and told you, even your present self, that's like, this is the journey, stay consistent and stay focused, and you'd be like, okay, all right, cool. I don't mind, struggling and experiencing this pain and adversity if this is just how it is, right? You don't want to experience needless suffering, but if it's just like, if it's just hard and this is part of getting to where I'm going, then okay, I can live with that. So sometimes you're looking for that reassurance and clarity of just understanding that that's what the journey is. You go from solving one problem, and as soon as you solve that, you enter the next problem, and then you got to figure that out, and it never ends.
Sure does not. All right, question number 2. I know I should be making bigger moves, but every time something holds me back. It just never feels like the right time, or sometimes I just feel like I don't have enough information to make the right call. I want to play a bigger game, but it never feels right. What do you do? It will never be the perfect time. It will never be the right time.
How do I best answer this? Oh, man.
I see you trying to be politically correct,
I
which
know.
means you will not be.
You have to understand that when you've failed to make that, like you say you want to play a bigger game and you want to make bigger steps to take bolder moves, but then when you never do those things, what you want becomes irrelevant. right? So it's kind of the difference between like ambition and commitment. It's like ambition is desire, commitment is like literally the doing of it, right? And if it never seems to quite happen, you start to build this identity around yourself that you just don't respect yourself and you don't have like confidence in yourself. To be honest, there's not some SWOT analysis that you can perform that will change your way of thinking here, because you're probably already overanalyzing and it's never been the right time. So, when does now become a good time? The reality of it is you will not make progress until you just do it.
Yeah.
The whole idea of making bold moves, like this is actually kind of fascinating when you think about it, right? Like it's not a bold move if you have all the information and you have complete certainty over exactly what the outcome is going to be. That's not a bold move. That's just a task. Like there's just something you just did. Like the fact that if something becomes a bold decision is that it comes with a lot of uncertainty, right? Like you don't know whether there's going to be like a future payoff or how long it will take. And generally the greater degree of uncertainty, there's a much higher upside. There's also downside, right? But not making those choices, it just sounds like you're already in a place of regret. And 5 years, 10 years from now, you're going to be in the exact same place, but you're going to feel even worse. And you're going to look back and say, all the things that I could have done that I never did because you were just a little scaredy cat. I mean, that's it. I've done so many presentations on this, on like courage and this whole idea that courage is not the absence of fear, it's acting in spite of fear. So it never feels comfortable to make bold moves. And you see other people making bold decisions. It's not that they're like somehow confident or comfortable doing those things. They're just as uncomfortable as perhaps you are. They just do it anyway. It's like getting into a cold plunge. You do it 300 times. On 301, it's just as uncomfortable as the first time you did it. I never want to do it. I dread it. It makes me uncomfortable. I'd want to stay in bed and it's warm. Like I do not want to get into a tub of cold ass water. And what's worse is I already know how cold it is. Right? So it's not like my first time where I'm like, I don't know, right? It's like ignorance. Now you know it's going to suck. So what compels someone to do it? You did this experiment at home, you're in the shower and you're like, look, you want to test it out? Just click, you're in this nice warm shower, make it as cold as humanly possible. Just do it. The best thing you can do is just do it before your brain even can think about it. Because if you're saying, we get myself ready, or I'm not quite sure, you're just not going to do it. Just get in the fucking water. Let's go. If you truly want to change and you truly want the things that you say you want. And you're like, well, what if it doesn't work out? Well, it 100% is already not working out. And you are 100% guaranteed to not make any sort of progress with the current habits that you have.
Correct. Got a pattern interrupt.
Yeah. So you have a greater than 0% chance of seeing some sort of upside versus 0 chance that you have now.
Totally agree. All right. To round us out today with question number 3, I have given everything to my firm. I work insane hours. I've sacrificed my personal life, my health, my peace of mind. But no matter how hard I push, I can't seem to break through to the next level. I don't know what else to do. Meanwhile, I see my competitors growing faster and easier. What am I missing? Little woe is me.
Yeah. There's people that kind of wear like their work ethic as like as a badge of honor. I know I did.
We both did for a long time.
Years. The first thing is the last part of that question, where you see your competitors growing faster and easier. You have no idea what's going on at your competitors. In fact, your competitors are probably more broke than you can even imagine, but you'd never know it because you have not stepped into their businesses and you're just following what they show on social media. You don't know what's going on over there. And if they are growing, it's certainly not easy. They're probably navigating their own challenges and their own adversity, and they're solving their own problems, and you're just seeing the outcomes of them solving problems. So you have absolutely no idea that they're growing faster and easier. They just may be just showcasing all their wins, and that's all you see. So you assume that all they do is just win all the time, right? Now you over here sacrificing everything, working hard, sacrificing my health and my family. I gave it all up. Okay, that's great. I think that works in the early stages of a business. Grit can take you to a certain point. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all for grit. I'm not going to be one of these people who work smarter, not harder, right? Like, when they start saying that kind of shit, because the problem with people who say that type of stuff is they overcorrect too much of the so-called smart, right? And then they say, I'm not going to work hard at all. And then they wonder why they don't get any progress because they read 4-hour work week, right? And they're like, I'm working 4 hours, right? And why isn't my business growing? You have to have the blend of, yes, you don't want to do things stupid, right? You obviously want to work smart, but if you can combine the two, you can see, exponential results. So I would look at this from the standpoint of maybe you just maxed out your capacity. Maybe you just maxed out what you can do in terms of your time output. And you may need to just shift from this mindset of how many hours can I apply to something and how hard can I work? Because if you're already working, I don't know, like 16 hours a day or whatever, there's not that incremental or even exponential impact to working an additional hour. It's probably diminishing returns. It's probably already diminishing returns in terms of how you're spending your time, because if your health is suffering, then your sleep is suffering, then your decision-making compromised, then like just overall your productivity probably sucks. But you're working a ton of hours, so you think you're doing everything right. So I would look at it more so having this mindset shift of how do I allocate my time and focus to produce the greatest outcomes and the greatest results? And now you start thinking about leverage. Maybe it's a function of, okay, if your capacity is maxed out, maybe we need to automate, delegate, hire additional people, bring in additional resources to free up more of your time to focus on the things that can make the greatest impact. There's different types of leverage. There's like, technology and software leverage. You can increase your output. I mean, you could get an AI assistant today. Just go on ChatGPT and, buy the $20 a month subscription, right? And you could have, like, if you think about how much time do I spend writing emails or how much time do I spend even just evaluating data and so on, like feed it into ChatGPT, you got an assistant all day long. And now you can have AI agents. You don't have to use ChatGPT. You can use Claude, you can use Gemini, you can use, whatever. But that can immediately increase your output. The other thing is when you look at like leverage, there's also like people leverage. So you got like technology, but then you have people, and it's just essentially having other people that you pay to do the tasks that you were previously doing. So then now you can work on doing other tasks. And imagine you could just delegate all of the current tasks that you're doing, maybe the ones that aren't the highest and best use of your time, right, to other people. And that would free you up to do more of the things that probably going to make a greater impact on growing and scaling the firm. So that's how you start to break through the next level. You solve, the capacity limitation, then you probably solve the capability, limitations. Sometimes you bring in people that have skills that you don't have. Instead of living in the time and effort economy, you kind of start living in the results economy, and you start thinking about actual impact, actual just outcome. And you having 24 hours in a day is not going to change. Like, that is not going to change. If you can figure out how to get a 25th hour, text me at 404-531-7691. I'd love to know, right? So there's things that you have to do. You have to sleep, you have to eat, you have to go to the bathroom, all of those different functions. So in the time that you do have available to you, how do you increase your output exponentially? Because, you're not the first person to struggle with this problem. How about every human being on earth, or maybe certainly every business owner and every law firm owner? And if you look at someone who's built a larger firm, they've figured this out. They're just better at this than you. They figured out how to apply leverage. They figured out how to scale their organization to not be so just dependent on just them. And they had to make this move from either like solo or small firm to actually starting to apply leverage and grow a much larger and more impactful organization. So that involves certain skills that you have to develop. Maybe there's going to be, ways of working that you just don't know yet. Like, you just don't know how to do it yet. And in order to figure that out, well, you can ask someone who's already done it, or you can join, this is the reason we have Crisp Coach, right? This is why we have the workshops, because we actually bring that knowledge and insight to our firms at the different revenue levels, whether at 6, 7, 8, or even 9 figures, But there's different skills and capabilities necessary at every level of growth, but you're not going to work your way through them. Like, you're already hitting a cap. So if nothing else, understand that your current way of doing things, as long as you keep doing things this way, you will never grow.
No.
And it's probably you're going to see continuous, diminishing returns. Then you're probably already burnt out and exhausted. Then you're going to get all depressed, and your health's already suffered. You're probably going to have a heart attack. And it's like, you compound these different things. And I say this from experience. I myself did this, right? And if someone could have taken me in that moment and be like, hey, let me shake you and show you that if you keep doing this, you are never going to get to where you want to go, because the way in which you're doing it is not the model and not the approach and not the habits. What is the saying? Like, the insanity, definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Like, you have to be able to separate what you believe is best from the outcome you actually want to achieve. And then you can start opening your mind to it and saying, okay, well, how would a 8-figure firm owner do this? Or how would a 9-figure firm owner do this? Right? How would they approach my situation and my problem? Because I look at this scenario now, and I wish someone had done this to me early on, because I had to go through a lot of just suffering and struggle and just a lot of just making mistakes and learning, which is very slow, right? I'm not advocating for that. I'm not very proud of it. But I look at this situation now, and it just seems so dumb, right? And whenever I see leaders doing things this way, I see just unevolved human beings.
Yeah.
That if you maybe can apply some empathy, right?
Now, you can have empathy, you don't always have to apply empathy, right? So it's like, I can see where you're coming from and I can see your struggles. I've been there before. That being said, I don't feel sorry for you, right? Because you're going to have to work your way out of this. We're going to have to figure this out, and I can give you knowledge and insight, but if you don't want to listen and you don't what is it? It's like hearing but not listening. Some people will hear the message, but they know best, right? Whatever's internal to them is fighting tooth and nail to preserve homeostasis and keep their situation the way it is, right? They're like, no, I'm not, whatever, I'll figure it out. And it's like, you're not figuring it out. Look at your fucking situation. You're about to collapse, right? And sometimes they have to end up in a hospital before they start to think, okay, maybe there's another way. And that dumbass was me. So I would say that if you take one thing away from this podcast is to say that just like you don't have to touch the stove to know that it is hot. Sometimes if your situation is the way it is, you can take full ownership of that. There's a great tool. We all have them. Right? It's actually pretty cool. Wherever you're listening, maybe you're at home, maybe you're at the office, you go to the bathroom, okay? And the place where you wash your hands, and you look up, it's a mirror. And you look at this human being, one of the most the productive things that you can do, and it's also one of the most difficult things you can do, is look at this mirror and say, this is the person that's stopping me from getting everything that I want, and this is the source of all my problems and all my frustrations, that human being, and that is you.
I don't think we have anything else to say today.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Game Changing Attorney podcast with Michael Mogill. If you found this episode valuable, here are 3 free ways that we can help you grow your law firm. Number 1, download the first chapter of Michael's book absolutely free at gamechangingattorney.com. Number 2, you can shoot Michael a text at 404-531-7691 and ask him any question you'd like. You might just hear the answer on the next episode. And finally, number 3, if you can leave this podcast a 5-star review, it will help us gain access to more influential thought leaders and bring their lessons learned here to you. For more information on this episode, see the show notes in your podcast app or visit legalpodcast.com.